The following is an adaptation of the book, Where the IT Lifecycle Ends, How Non-Compliant IT Asset Disposition Creates Unnecessary Exposure. All rights reserved. The issue of non-compliant IT asset disposition came to light after a major bank disclosed 2 data breaches. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency imposed a $60 million penalty on the bank for engaging in unsound practices that were part of a pattern of misconduct. The Securities and Exchange Commission fined the bank another $35 million, describing its ITAD procedures as astonishing. The IT lifecycle begins when an asset is acquired and ends when it is decommissioned and retired. While compliance mandates meticulous tracking of every asset from acquisition to disposition, it is commonly known that most organizations can't account for up to 20% of hardware assets. Organizations can no longer kick the can down the road. The SEC passed cybersecurity regulations and deemed ITAD a cybersecurity risk after discovering routine procedures were astonishing. The traditional IT asset management and ITAD paradigm has its roots in trust. The same people are responsible for both tracking assets and retiring them. Organizations can no longer afford to let the fox guard the henhouse. Segregation of duties is essential to avoid conflicts of interest and satisfy regulatory requirements. Despite its noble goals, traditional IT asset disposition is destined to fail since it lacks segregation of duties. While IT asset management experts often downplay the need for segregation of duties, implementing it would ironically enhance accountability and significantly benefit IT asset management by increasing its resources. IT asset management and IT asset disposition vendors support one another and have each other's backs. Traditional trust-based IT asset disposition is rigged to skirt accountability and disclosure provisions. Rather than being investigated, missing IT assets are considered retired. Retired assets are assigned to IT asset disposition vendors. Allocating assets transfers the burden of inventory reconciliation to the IT asset disposition vendor, who has no incentive to report issues. IT assets turn toxic when they go missing without proof that they don't contain data. Management may be reluctant to examine non-compliant IT asset disposition, also called bad ITAD, because they fear it may open Pandora's box of complex and costly challenges with toxic IT assets. Loss aversion explains why IT asset management and IT asset disposition vendors are reluctant to report assets missing. People naturally avoid self-reporting facts that could make them look bad. Problems with traditional IT asset management and IT asset disposition are beyond the control of any one individual. Blaming individuals for bad IT asset disposition practices creates a culture of fear, which hinders problem-solving and increases whistleblower risk. The elephant in the room is an inherent conflict of interest. Dealing with conflicts of interest can be risky and unpleasant without a proven plan. Anyone can submit a whistleblower tip to the Securities and Exchange Commission. While relying on IT asset management experts might be tempting, conflicts of interest compromise it as the issues stem from there. Given the potential consequences, seeking assistance from an experienced IT asset disposition management specialist is the effective strategy. While IT asset management can't resolve non-compliant IT asset disposition, effective IT asset management remains vital to preventing future issues. Assets must be tracked from acquisition through disposition, and assets can go missing at any stage of the life cycle. Effective IT asset management requires the right incentive structure, appropriate resources, and executive support. When incentives aren't aligned, incidents go unreported. In traditional trust-based IT asset disposition, it's easy to sweep problems under the rug, making issues tempting for management to overlook. Exposure has escalated as both the Securities and Exchange Commission and the ambulance chasers have uncovered the issue of non-compliant IT asset disposition. The SEC now holds management accountable for being aware of incidents. Board of directors have new responsibilities, and plausible deniability is not a justifiable excuse. Cyber liability insurance will not protect an organization from non-compliant IT asset disposition. Hidden in the fine print are terms and conditions you must comply with. including adequate controls and segregation of duties. Independent auditors will scrutinize processes because the Securities and Exchange Commission rules spotlight IT asset disposition, demanding robust inventory tracking and internal controls. Any discrepancy between the company's and the ITAD vendor's inventory will require a thorough investigation. It may seem like being painted into a corner because the past can't be changed. Those responsible must remain involved, and anyone can become a whistleblower. Change is required for compliance. However, mismanaging the shift may create additional exposure. The myriad of challenges tied to toxic IT assets and non-compliant IT asset disposition can be overwhelming. Transforming IT asset management and IT asset disposition requires embracing change and engaging a specialist. Disposal tags are crucial for managing assets, preventing theft, minimizing losses, and ensuring a clear chain of custody. They bring order and discipline to the disposal process. A policy of using disposal tags can instantly transform bad ITAD and set a foundation for defensible disposition. Disposal tags discreetly address issues, deter theft, and prove chain of custody. Disposal tags are like a vet hiding medicine in treats. Just as skydivers wouldn't dream of jumping without a backup parachute, an equipment verification hold acts as a critical safety net in the IT asset disposition process. This temporary halt ensures equipment isn't resold or destroyed until its chain of custody is verified. The Securities and Exchange Commission incentivizes whistleblower tips with millions of dollars. Where the IT lifecycle ends, there may be regulatory fines and lawsuits if adequate controls are not in place, such as segregation of duties, disposal tags, and equipment verification holds. By implementing segregation of duties, disposal tags, and equipment verification holds, your organization can safeguard against non-compliant IT asset disposition. With these controls in place, there is peace of mind where the IT lifecycle ends. Afterward, enterprise IT asset disposition has become a compliance nightmare and a plaintiff lawyer's dream come true. This book aims to simplify complex topics and spark open dialogue through humor and visuals, making difficult conversations more manageable. Here are a few questions to ask to get the conversation started. How would you know if an employee took an asset? How would you know if a truck driver stole an asset? How would you know if a missing asset is retired rather than being investigated? What incentives exist for an employee or a vendor to report a security incident? Does your organization consider a missing asset to be a cybersecurity incident? Do you share your inventory with your downstream ITAD vendor? Do you require your ITAD vendor to hold assets in order to allow you to confirm the chain of custody? And lastly, is the individual responsible for tracking your IT assets also in charge of disposal? I hope my illustrations and explanations help you understand where the IT lifecycle ends and how non-compliant IT asset disposition creates unnecessary exposure. For further information, please feel free to contact me. You can also find valuable insights in my blog, The ITAD Aficionado,